Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev has been a matchup long overdue in the light heavyweight division. And now this matchup has been rumored to be confirmed for UFC 313. And if not then, it'll definitely be happening for the next title fight in the light heavyweight division. And I think you guys will be surprised on who I think will win this matchup. When you analyze the two styles between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev, I feel like the winner is a little bit more clear-cut than most people think. Like, when you analyze Magomed Ankalaev specifically, we all know that Ankalaev is primarily a counter-striker who has some of the best boxing in the division. So, it's going to be natural for him to be more comfortable on the feet. I think it's about time that we give up on that narrative that all Dagestani fighters are these boring wrestlers, because there are numerous examples of fighters from this region that are primarily strikers like Shara Magomedov and Zabit Magomedsharipov. Ankalaev is one of the best wrestlers in the division, but Ankalaev is primarily a striker, and in this matchup specifically against Alex Pereira, Magomed Ankalaev has stated that he will try and beat Alex Pereira on the feet and he would avoid the wrestling. Statements like these from fighters are crucial to understand the mindset that they're going to have when going into these type of matchups. Now, the reason why I keep emphasizing that Magomed Ankalaev is primarily a striker is because when a fighter is under enormous pressure, they tend to stick to the style that they're comfortable with. For example, every single time that Alex Pereira ends up knocking out one of his opponents, there is always this perplexed group of MMA fans who are just like, why didn't Yuri Prochazka shoot a takedown? Or why didn't Jamal Hill not try and use his grappling, because that is the weakest part of Alex Pereira's game? And the answer to that question is that most of Alex Pereira's opponents are primarily strikers, meaning that they're going to confront Alex Pereira in the striking first. And this includes Magomed Ankalaev. And I'm not saying that Magomed is not going to shoot any takedowns, but he is going to test the waters against Alex Pereira striking before he resorts to the wrestling, since he's primarily a striker. And that is going to be his biggest mistake in this fight. And don't get me wrong, if Magomed Ankalaev does try and strike with Pereira, he does have a chance to knock him out. Like I said before, he is a really good counter striker and he does have power. But he's going to have to catch Pereira with a very clean shot that Pereira likely does not see coming. And on the other hand, Pereira, he's such a powerful striker that he would not have to catch Magomed Ankalaev with a clean shot to knock him out. When discussing Pereira's just otherworldly power, people leave out his ability to knock out people without even landing a clean shot. This is a very underrated aspect of Pereira striking because it just shows how nuclear Alex Pereira's power really is. Most strikers in the UFC rely on clean counters and skill to set up devastating knockouts. For example, if you look at a striker like Sean O'Malley, he has racked up quite the highlight reel of knockouts in his career. But when you look at all of his knockouts, he catches his opponents with a very clean shot right on the chin. And there's nothing wrong with this. It shows how skilled Sean O'Malley is in the realm of striking to set up these clean moments. Alex Pereira can also knock out his opponents when he catches them clean, like when he knocked out Sean Strickland. But a lot of Alex Pereira's knockouts, he does not need to catch his opponents clean on the chin. And in some cases, Pereira finds openings to knock out his opponents within the chaos. In other words, Pereira does not need to create a perfect moment and a perfect opening to knock out Magomed Ankalaev. For example, at UFC 300, when he knocked out Jamal Hill, he did not even touch Jamal Hill's chin. And Pereira's full fist didn't even connect on Jamal Hill's face either. Pereira's pinky knuckle connected with Jamal Hill's cheek, and that was enough to send Jamal Hill's eyes rolling behind his head, and it just emphasizes the sheer amount of kinetic energy behind each of Pereira's punches. Or even when you look at his first fight against Yuri Prochazka, Alex Pereira was getting backed up and getting hit by some good shots from Yuri Prochazka, and in the middle of the chaos, Alex Pereira was able to land a right hook in close quarters that barely connects with Yuri, and he drops Yuri Prochazka, finishing the fight. So basically, in a 5-round fight, Magomed Ankalaev would need to be not touched by Pereira to avoid getting knocked out or even getting hurt, leading to a finish. And we're talking about Alex Pereira, who is one of the best strikers in UFC history. Now, when we're looking at how both fighters can realistically win this fight, Magomed Ankalaev, he's probably not going to submit Alex Pereira unless Pereira is like severely compromised on the feet. Magomed Ankalaev's last submission was over 10 years ago, before he was even signed in the UFC. So there's really only one sure way that Ankalaev can win, and that is by knocking out one of the best strikers in the sport. On the other hand, there are many ways that Pereira can win this fight. Everyone just mentions how Pereira can knock out Magomed, but Pereira can also win by a decision victory as well. Honestly, as long as Pereira doesn't get completely outclassed all 5 rounds and he makes it somewhat competitive, Pereira is most likely to win the decision victory. I'm just keeping it real. In a close fight, do you really think the UFC is going to give the decision victory to Ankalaev over Pereira, who has stepped up and saved multiple pay-per-view cards within 1 year? And the answer to that question is most likely not. Every single close decision in Pereira's career, they're going to give it to Pereira. They gave Pereira the decision when he fought Jan Blachowicz. Me personally, I think that Jan Blachowicz, I think he could have edged out 2 rounds in that fight. However, I'm not mad at that decision. I don't think that that was a robbery necessarily, but when it comes down to these close matchups in Pereira's career, the UFC and judges, they're most likely going to side with Pereira because Pereira, he's the bigger star and he steps up and saves pay-per-views for the company. So those are really the aspects that I'm looking at when going into this fight, because Magomed, he's probably not going to finish Pereira. So if the fight goes to a decision, if Magomed does not totally just outclass and just wipe the floor with Pereira, they're probably going to give Pereira the benefit of the doubt when it comes down to scoring close rounds and stuff like that. And like I said in the beginning of the video, the only way that you're going to really outclass Alex Pereira in an MMA fight is going to be through the wrestling. Alex Pereira, he lost his first fight through the wrestling. And if Magomed Ankalaev comes in with the mindset that he's going to just strike with Alex Pereira and he's going to try and knock him out, Alex Pereira, he's the best striker in the UFC right now, and he's going to outpoint Magomed at least to a decision. If he doesn't finish Magomed, Alex Pereira, he's going to be able to pick Magomed apart on the feet and win by a decision. So my official early prediction for this fight is going to be Alex Pereira by a decision. I think that Magomed, he is a pretty defensively sound fighter, so I don't see him getting just flatline KO'd. But like I said before, if Magomed approaches this fight like he's a striker, then I don't really see him winning this fight unless he approaches this matchup with a wrestling-centric game plan. So that is why I am picking Alex Pereira to defeat Magomed Ankalaev by a decision.